Hey there, friends. My name is Mastriani-Levi. I'm really glad to be with you again. I'm here for another healing conversation with my dear friend William Brown. We're doing episode 5, and we're going to really tear into the idea, and maybe even tear sounds like a little bit of an aggressive verb, but exploring rest with compassion. We're going through a discussion of how we find justification in rest and the compassion that we need to kind of tease out of this whole COVID experience to step into a place that not only allows us to rest, but to shift entirely our schedules and our days and how we approach things much more compassionately in order to learn from this new normal, whatever we're calling it. So I'd like to invite William Brown to join me, and we'll dive in. Hey there.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I'm really excited to kind of talk about this because it feels like so many people are feeling confused these days, me included, maybe you too, about what is this new rhythm? What does it, as difficult for so many people as the lockdown period and the initial outbreak of the corona and the time that we were advised and asked very seriously to stay at home included a lot of rest for people, like the never-ending weekend.
Right.
And now we're trying to get back to work while still respecting the fact that COVID is still happening. And we learned this new pace that included a lot more rest. And for me, I think that the trigger word is lazy. Like if I rest too much, do I really care about my business? Have I become lazy? Have I lost momentum? And where do I have permission to shift and step into a completely different cycle or a different rhythm altogether? So I'd like to hear your take, and we'll see what we do from there.
Wow. Yeah, I totally get that. Even a lot of my business is done from working at home. I would go in some co-working opportunities, every once in a while, but primarily I was at home, and so there was a clear time, work time, and not work time, and all that kind of stuff. I kind of worked out for myself, but until I was asked to stay home, right? Right. And then in my mind, it felt like I was work all the time, even though that's it really wasn't the case. And so I didn't realize how much for myself that there was this push not to be lazy, not to be just slacking, not to rest, right? Not to, not to just kind of act as if I was home when there was some work to be done. And it was just really, it was really odd how quickly it went from, this really routine and systematic way of working from home to now being at home and now being really concerned if I am being lazy or if I'm working. If I'm, so there was this, and I was, it's almost this, there was this, I don't want to say contest, but there was this feeling that I didn't do enough today, so I need to stay up a little later, right? To kind of prove that I wasn't a slack today.
That you weren't slacking. Like, how much work would be enough?
Right.
That becomes the question. And why did you suddenly have to up your game in order to not be slacking? What made you think that?
I think that the main thing for me was, I think my there's two things that changed, and and it just came to mind that in the beginning I was watching the news are a lot more, because I wanted to get information. I wanted to know what was going on or not happening. So my TV watching went up. And so the fact that the TV was on during quote unquote work hours while I was trying to watch a briefing or kind of understanding what was going on or not happening, it just kind of easily just turned into, now this is a state of being. And I felt that I wasn't as productive, or I wasn't as focused when that TV was on, or when I was checking feeds about the latest this or that.
Overlap of
Right.
two worlds.
Right.
I think in the beginning also there was a feeling of, I don't think this is going to last that long. This is just going to kind of blow over, like, and don't hear me disrespecting the people who died from previous things that were like H1N1 and Ebola, but relatively quickly they kind of just went through and took out a very small amount of the population, and then it was just like, oh, we don't need to get into a panic about this.
Right.
And then we started losing our friends.
Right.
And it became something different, like, oh, I almost have to stay committed to the news, also out of loyalty for the places where I was almost disrespecting this in the beginning of, like, this is no big deal.
Right. Right. And I think, I would hate to think that the reason why those other global pandemics, because they were, but they didn't get the attention of this one,
Right.
type of thing, that I guess the press. And I don't know if it's just the way how the news shows up, but I think there is a level of, because we were, on pause, right? Because we were at home, there wasn't this, this may be serious, but it's not that serious because I'm still doing everything that I'm still doing. No one has said, that I really needed to, stay at home or wear a mask or, all that other kind of stuff. It was something else that somebody else was dealing with, and it's had nothing to do with me, but it kind of did. And I think, just like a lot of other things that have gotten our attention through this time, is that feeling that we just, I've had this for myself. I don't know if you've had this experience with, something that's going on in your life, and you're like, okay, I am going to deal with this later because I have to go to work, right? And it's just, even though whatever was happening, that I kind of put on pause or whatever, was still happening, but I chose to ignore, it.
Like compartmentalization, right?
Right. And just act as if nothing, nothing is happening right now. And I just couldn't do that. I think a lot of us couldn't do that with this. We couldn't departmentalize this. And we had to, like, crap, I guess I have to deal with this and continue to deal with this.
Right. And I think there are different levels that we all had to deal with it, depending on you and I, being that we both work from home primarily. That was one factor, and that we're both pretty much introverts kind of made it like, oh, this isn't so incredibly different. But suddenly the kids are at home and not at school. And suddenly the clients that I did go and see, I don't go and see. And we're always together, always, always, always together.
Right.
There's no break. And it's a good thing that we really love each other and we didn't have any major fights and we just really enjoyed each other. But I hear, like, stories of divorce rates exponentially going through the roof and other stuff. And, it brings me back to this idea of, how do we step away? How do we create rest? And we were given this opportunity, it wasn't the reason that we were given this, but now because of the circumstances, we are able to redefine our time, reframe our time, setting boundaries. When the door is closed, I'm working. Or when do you interrupt me because the news is just that pressing?
Right.
Setting times. Okay, well, if before I worked for 3 or 4 hours, then I'm going to make sure that I still continue to work for 3 or 4 hours.
Right.
I don't know. But it was really interesting. We were talking about the process of like things that we do, that we build momentum on them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have your show and you have these numbers that are going up, numbers like episode number going up, and suddenly it's going to like fall off the grid, which is
Right.
probably likely not, because you built a really good infrastructure to hold it if you were to skip a day or
Right.
week.
Right.
But, you know, I can remember things that I have encountered are when I'll do like a language learning program and they have like these streaks of you've shown up for class 70 days in a row,
Right.
and then you miss one and you're like, oh. And like, why this little counter thing suddenly it gets to determine your value.
Right.
Or I know a lot of addicts that I've worked with who have had, you know, 4 years sober, and then suddenly 4 years in one day they fell off the wagon.
Right.
And then it's like all of it was forgotten because I messed up this one time. And it's really, really hard for them to get back on the wagon. And I think that there's a fear in all of us that when we suddenly stop something, that we won't be able to jump back into it, or that we might not show up as the same person. We might have to face the fact that, oh, I'm not dependable, or I'm not committed, or whatever label we've put on what it means to show up consistently.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I've had that exact moment within my meditation practice. You know, using insight timer and looking at the stats. You know, you're just the stats are going up and everything like that, and it's like, 20 20 consecutive days, 30, 50, 100, 200, then one consecutive day. It's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe, it's
Like,
like,
how do we allow that counter to redefine us?
right. And it was like, I was able to let that go because I realized that my meditation practice isn't just what I do in the morning. I have found ways throughout the day to take a breath when needed, right? To really, it's like, okay, I've been working for the last 2 hours. Let's take a breath. Let's center myself. Let's do some things. And
I
that
hear my
is
kids printing something, so I'm going to stop right now so we don't miss this. They apparently forgot that I was recording. Sorry. So that's our moment. Record the 1307 and then come back. Sorry.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to see how quickly I had created this practice, this integrative practice of my life, right? Of really saying that it's not just what you do first thing in the morning. But is that page 2, right?
No, it's just shutting down now.
Right. Oh, that's great. But realizing that there is so much more than those 15 to 30 minutes in the morning to really kind of cement my meditation practice and anything. But like I said, it took me like weeks of feeling like crap, that I was like, I missed the day, and I did all that
Takes some
work, and
time to
now
get back on the. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. And so we were talking about the two ends of the spectrum of the person who has the perfect attendance, who never misses a day, who even when they maybe don't feel well, they show up because that's what they do. They show up.
Right.
They're consistent. They're dependable. Usually considered to be great workers to have because they'll show up for you and keep their word. Except in COVID when you're not supposed to go to work when you don't feel well, but probably in a lot of other scenarios when they were sick and maybe got other people sick, but just the same. So the other end of the spectrum is what? The people who like will commit and then just never show up or show up when they feel like it, or like we know that they're flake out, or yeah, you can't really depend on them because they'll promise you everything and show up when it's convenient for them. And I think that we feel like we fall on one end or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just one day you flake.
Right.
Is it flaking, or is it like saying, I really need rest today?
Right.
And how do we build that into the ethos of the relationships with our clients, the relationships with our partners, our families, so that we can show up?
What just came up for me is because I was looking at my flaking history, right? Just kind of looking through, right? It's like, oh yeah, I flaked on there, I flaked on there. And most of the times that I flake is because I don't have a level of compassion to have a conversation about what I need, the rest that I need. So instead of saying, hey, I'm really tired, or I really, really just want to do nothing, I will just like, not show up, and they just have them just think that, oh, he's just a flake. And that's better than admitting that I'm just tired. It's just, I just, for me, it was just like, wow, what is that all about? I would rather have that rep than to have a rep that at any point I can take, a personal day and mental health day, as they call it, right? And be okay with that.
So I remember when my brother was running his business when he was much younger, and whenever you're working like a project style service business where you're doing a specific project for a client in their home, you create this timeline.
Right.
But as you know, when you're doing things, there are all kinds of moving parts, not just you that flaked,
right,
which probably is not the case,
right,
but you have like all these subcontractors and all these other people. And one of the things that he said to me that's always stuck with me is it's almost like people don't care. Like they just want to know, they want to be in the loop of what's going on. So it's almost like they would allow you to have that day of rest, or these paint supplies didn't come in. They just want like not excuses, but real honest communication on some level,
right,
like just so that they're not sitting at home waiting for you,
right.
and you don't show up.
Wow.
And that's always stuck with me because I've felt like, okay, I really need to make sure that, always being honest. But like, I can remember I had a car wreck in February. I was dropping a rental car off, and I was supposed to meet my friend for a concert. I call my kids the first thing, the police, my kids, and then I call her because I don't want her waiting and thinking that I flaked on her. Right. And even though I don't know if I called her, if I messaged her, but it was just like people who are committed to being compassionate for others' feelings, it almost doesn't matter what happens. You can find a way to send a 3-second text or like, yo, I was in a car accident. I'm not going to make it. Like, if you want to give that ticket to someone else, go for it. Sorry, it's last minute. Like if you're able to talk, you can do that.
Right.
And how often when we meet with our clients, I know that last week I went to the chiropractor because I'm still kind of healing from this whole accident. And he did some pretty serious work, and I was tender, and I was supposed to meet a client the next day. And of course, I'm going to meet the client. And then I was like, this feels a little bit tender in my body. Like, I'm not really, I want to be able to show up for this person, but I'm not like, in order to be honest and compassionate with myself, we're going to have to make this a phone session. And I wasn't really asking for permission.
Right.
I was just saying, you know, like, I don't usually do this. You know, I've shown up to every single session we've had, and I'm not about to ditch you on this one, but we're just going to shift to the phone. If you want to walk the trail and talk to me as you're walking, cool. I can't walk the trail today with you. So that's what we did. And you just got to let people know. And I always finish a message with just hit me back that you received this, so that I know that I've done my part to just like be very clear about what's going on, because I feel like time is one of our biggest assets or resources. And when we don't respect our time or other people's time, we're digging in a place that just feels like my time's more important than yours. It's really selfish.
Right. Well, I think the one thing that I got from you sharing that, it's, you know, I think you mentioned before about the justification to have, you know, another, I don't want to say another experience. It's like I have to justify my body is not, you know, performing the way I would like to get you to allow me to have another option, instead of just say, hey, today we're just going, for me, I'm just going to need to be on the phone. Do you think, and I think in some cases, you know, when I look at justification, because that's something that I don't know if I have been a recovering justifier, but a lot of my communication was I would say something and then I would try to justify what I just said, and it would cause a 5-minute or a 2-minute conversation into an hour conversation, or, you know, because I'm putting all this extra stuff in here to justify what I just said. And the question that I have is that, do you believe that we justify, you know, taking a rest, doing things differently, all those things, because if we don't give a justification, we will just add story to it. We will, you know, it's not just, hey, Sarah, you know, there must be a good reason, and I'm just gonna take it and just kind of roll with that. Have we lost that much, I don't want to say faith in each other, that we have to justify our actions and what we're doing and what we're not doing?
What I'm hearing between this is that we're busy explaining why we're not lazy. And one of my goals has been stop explaining.
Right.
If somebody wants to know more details, if it's not private, then sure. Like, generally people will be like, everything okay? And like, you could say, yeah, I'm just feeling super sore from the chiropractor. Right. Yeah, I need to be here an hour from now for my kid, you know, like,
right.
But you don't have to go into this whole spiel of like how I'm not responsible, and like almost guilting yourself because you took what you needed to rest. And a lot of times it sounds ironic because you think of compassion with like a broader story,
right?
But the compassion a lot of times comes without the explaining. That's something that's extended to you, just like, your character has shown up this way enough times to build some credence and credibility, that if you tell me I can't do this, then there must be some reason.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at kind of some notes that I was thinking about beforehand. Another thing that came up for me is you've got a big project and you've got a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deadline, deadlines often get pushed off when it's, okay, a design project or whatever it might be. It will get pushed off a little bit, and most of the parties are, amiable to the fact that, if you're having a pool built, if it's done on the 8th or the 18th, your pool is still being built. There were rain days or whatever it might have been. But when you have a hard and fast deadline that you have to do, I struggle with two things. What do I have to do to justify resting to myself? Like the whole story, I said, stop explaining. I'm still explaining to myself.
Right.
And when do I allow myself to celebrate for achieving that thing and rest?
Right.
That part of the celebration can be rest, instead of just like, oh, there was one speed bump, let's keep going until the next speed bump.
Mm.
So what do we do in order to create that rest when we have a hard and fast deadline?
Mm. It's that is still a challenge for me. I will admit there is still this element of, I don't know why shop until you drop, is coming to mind, but it's just like go until you can't go anymore. It's like my body has to say no more. We're done. It is not something that I sense that, hey, maybe we need to kind of step back a little, hey, all that kind of stuff. It is like, because I get into this conversation as well. Okay, one more, I don't know if it's no pain, no gain. I don't know. I don't know what is caused, what I believe. So I think that's where I'll land is, I don't know what I believe that causes me to have my body, or like a strong relationship in my life to say, dude, you need to sit down for a minute. You need to rest. I don't know. And it's like, so the more that I will be able to identify what belief is holding that, then I can make some different choices.
Yeah. As I feel into what you're saying, it's not so much the deadline as it is the commitment of how I want to show up, how in my mind, when you think out a project, you have to add like an extra double the time frame.
Right. Yeah.
Almost, when you think
Right.
out a project, because of all the weird shit that goes wrong along the path, right? And you're expecting it to take 4 hours, and then it takes 8, because you actually did need to take that hour for lunch so that you could continue to show up and be. But I know that when I think something through in my brain, I'm like, I can think it really fast.
Right.
Like if I sit down and just nose to the grindstone, I can knock this out in 4 hours. And I've one of the places where I've found fault with myself frequently is that when I tell somebody I can do that in 4 hours, I'm not lying. Like I could literally do that in 4 hours if nothing else in my life was going on.
Right.
Right.
And that's never the case, right? Yeah.
Right. But I live in this like hyper-focused state when I'm excited about something that I hone in and I'm like, that's a 4-hour project. Okay, this is what I'm billing for, a 4-hour project. And really honestly believing that I can not lying to them, not lying to me, just completely believing that I can get it done. And then somehow not really, there's that saying, you can't add where you can't subtract from other areas of your life.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like nothing else in my life showed up and said, hey, we've got 4 hours to spare. Why don't you take that from us and put this towards your project? I am absolutely convinced in that moment that I can get it done in that amount of time. And when it's in front of me, it's my priority, right? but then I remember all of my other priorities, to my family, to my kids, to this thing that of being a present parent. And then it's like, man, like I really have to choose here.
Right.
And how often do I allow, like, I don't want to say half-ass things with people that are important to me, but how often do I just like, okay, so I'll do this, and then I'll just go to bed a little bit later, and then like I do this kind of wiggle between all of it, really, really trying to make it work, which I think a lot of us who work at home and who are single parents or have kind of like this commitment to family do. But I found that with COVID, if I had alone time before to work on something, like it's almost like the universe is saying, you need to change your work.
Right.
You need to change your work now. You no longer are going to work the way you worked before.
Right.
Because I'm giving you this opportunity to be with your family nonstop. So how can you do what you need to do to get through this time until you can build something new? But what you are no longer going to do those 4-hour projects. You are no longer allowed to make those kinds of commitments. Because if you could somehow focus yourself and be like, those horse blinders, like, oh, I've just got this project, 4 hours. Now, just like a few minutes ago, we had the printer go off in the middle of this, even though I told them we're recording, right? So this is just the craziness of how we need to rethink our work and how we get to reshape things, the new rhythm.
Yeah, and I think within that, rethinking our rest, because this thing about this mentality of working for the weekend or working to the weekend, right? Working so you can have a weekend, right? It's like working so I can rest, and rest. I think for me, I have to rest so I can work. Figure out that ways to switch it over. And for me, we have a dear friend, Charlie Gilkey, that does some great work on productivity. And I've seen a lot of his forms and a lot of different things. I've read his book and chunking and all those other, and just kind of looking at the time element of it. And I still find myself having unreasonable timelines for
right.
It's like, what are you doing? Right.
Yeah, we literally, what I had to do was to start really putting in rest times on my calendar, like blocking out that if I thought I could take 2 clients in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, now it's maybe 1 in the morning and maybe 1 in the afternoon. And it doesn't make sense financially how we're all supposed to stay afloat with this new normal until we rework everything. But I think one of the things that's kind of lighting up as I'm listening to you is that idea that maybe I'm not working hard enough. Like I could always do this before. And creating some sort of story in my mind that I should be able to do this.
Right.
Instead of realizing, no, you are being forced to create a change right now. And you may have to kind of flow. Just flow with what's showing up in order to have that compassion. The lack of flow is the lack of compassion at this point.
Yeah. I think, and just being aware of it, there was a number of areas in my life, especially when I worked, in the corporate environment, that, in all accounts, I was, successful in my work, but I had little of no awareness of how I was being successful. I knew I had the talent, I knew I had the skills and all that other kind of stuff. But the aspect of flow and just flowing into my job and just getting things done, I had no awareness of that.
Yeah.
And so when that was when I was doing my own thing, I just felt that, oh, I just show up and, stuff happens, right? Because that's what I do. It's like, okay, this is the gig, so I just can do that. And it's just like, okay, why am I not working right now? Right? It's like, what is going on? And I think really embracing the flow of my life and recognize that there are I um, I've embraced this, that there are some days where I get up, do my meditation, and I do nothing. I wasn't doing my show for a while, but I would do nothing before my show, do my show, and basically have this this block or this burst of energy or productivity around 4 to 6 o'clock. And it was like, hey, we're going to shift some dinner around or anything like that, and just kind of do that, because that's just when that energy came, and being okay with that instead of trying to force this work. And I mean, that is something that I'm privileged to be able to do because of, working for myself. And a lot of people can say, hey, I'll just do my work at home tonight, right? Type of thing. And like I said, and there are some days where I meditate, in the morning, and I'm like, I hit the ground running, and I'm productive. I do my show and I take a nap at 4, right? Or, it's like, type of thing. And then, I get up, eat, and kind of, maybe do some reading or something and go to bed or something like that. But it's just trying to have, a ritual and be in the flow of my life is sometimes very difficult. And the biggest challenge point in the whole thing is when I'm working and when I'm resting. Really kind of saying that, all right, you're resting right now. Shouldn't you be working? It's like, no, we're resting right now. Really? Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Having those hard boundaries, right, with ourselves. Nobody else is calling you up and saying, I see you sitting on your couch right now. What are you thinking?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But trying to really make it feel like I'm at any moment, if somebody would call me, I could say, hey, I am busy right now.
Yeah, that's the over glorification of busy, right? Or
Right.
it's somebody we don't want to talk to, and that's a whole
Right.
other show.
That's a whole nother show. Right?
Yeah. So that I do a lot of, I think that I do a lot of card works and readings with oracle cards and different things. And
Yes.
just like you have your cards that you pulled, I pulled one beforehand when I was thinking about what we could talk about. And for me, it was really confirmation. So I'm just going to go ahead and show it to you.
Okay.
And it says, pay attention to your body.
Oh,
And
wow.
on the back, I'll read to you what it says. On this day, think about one thing that your body requires that it didn't need yesterday. Listen, observe, and pay attention to the physical, emotional, mental, and psychological stresses in your body and respond to one of them fully and consciously. Your goal, to pay attention to your body in every way. So what actually captures me there is pay attention to one of them fully and consciously.
Right. Wow.
Like we don't have to get them all right all at once.
Right.
But, like knowing I couldn't sleep last night. I don't know, full moon, I had an earache. What's going on? Like entire night. And I'm like, why can't I go to sleep? You would have thought I drank like coffee or something before I went to bed. And I was like, what do I need today? I still had appointments, but it was like, whoa, I really just need to slow this down. Unfortunately, my kids were pretty understanding when I was like in between appointments, kind of like hanging out and trying to power nap, but still couldn't fall asleep.
Right.
But they were just like, okay, mom needs to take it easier today. So if we can't create justification for ourselves, at least create a support system that justifies our rest.
Right. Absolutely. It's kind of funny because what stuck out for me, in the card is I was trying to check off all the boxes. So I was trying, even though it said only pick one, I was like, okay, I'll do that one. I'll do that one. I'll do that. I'll ask my, I'll do all of those. And it's the mentality of all or nothing, but having compassion to do one, just do
Right.
one. What does
Yeah.
your body need from you?
I'm
One
thinking
thing.
about something that's really, really nice that's helped to keep me on track. So I just recently ordered this, and maybe you've seen these before. This is a tool, and I mean, you've probably seen these with different things, but it's like six different, sorry, I'm pointing to the wrong side, six
Okay.
different habits, and then the
Okay.
days of the month, and you just kind of color them in with shapes and designs or whatever you want. And then
Okay.
at the bottom, there's actually a tracker of the total that you've achieved, but the total that your goal was. So maybe you only had an 80%. Like, maybe I don't want to exercise every day.
Right.
So I hit my goal because I did it 4 times a week. I don't know. I'm making stuff up here. But I
Right.
really like that. I think so often, I don't know about you, but when I look at these amazing charts that people create for tracking stuff, it's like I feel like I need to have my entire life crammed into that chart,
Right.
or I didn't do it right.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's why I give up on those things and just gone with, you know, Charlie, one day I am great on board. This is, this will work well for me. But
Yeah.
the flow of my life, the emotions that are going on, whatever I'm feeling, I want nothing to do with that form. I can't even find a damn form today, right? Right? I mean,
Right.
and I know I left it on my desk. I don't know why it's not on my desk
I got
right now.
you.
There's nowhere else it should be right now.
Yeah.
Uh, but so I don't know if I've been tricking myself or just kind of doing different language, but I for the most part don't set goals. I just look at what I'm committed to. I just look at my commitments. I'll write down, this is what I'm committed to, this is what I'm committed to, and however it shows up, it shows up. And I kind of take it.
Can you give an example of something that you're committed to that's not a specific thing, but it's more like a feeling?
With my health, right? I'm committed to being fit. And I had a goal at first. It started off as a goal of doing like 5,000 steps a day, type of thing. And there would be, some days I did 5, and then, I'm one of those people that it's like, okay, I didn't do 5 yesterday, so I'm going to do 7 today, or I'm trying to make up the rest so I can get that average for the week. And then it just, there was a number of days that I didn't do any walking, and I was like, okay, you're just a bum now, right? And so what I committed to is to doing activities, how many activities I do a week to that will support me being fit. And so within that, I have noticed that there is not this pressure to walk or this pressure to read or to drink water or to do, fitness activities. It's just like, hey, I have someone, I'll find ways of being active because I'm committed to that. And it just really, it's very interesting that just changing those 2 words and not putting this, this goal associated to it has really changed the way how I just show up in it. And it can cause me to, you know, take a look and go, oh, wow, I'm only like 5 pounds away from my goal. Who knew, right? Right? Type of thing. And it's like, okay, whatever I'm doing, keep doing that. And it's like, yeah, I don't know what I've been doing. Okay, just stay committed, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah. So, as we're kind of winding down tonight, I'd love to hear what your takeaways are, and then I'll share mine.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is that even with some things, practices, and tools that I have to find rest, to get rest, the importance of it, I still have this hang up about if I'm doing it right or enough, you know, or something. And I and it feels like for me, the more that I kind of do some inquiry on that and be able to let that go, I will really kind of show up in the flow of my work and my rest.
Hmm.
So that's exciting for me instead of just beating myself up, because
Mhm.
I am still you know you know putting up tick marks for work and rest and making sure that it's balanced it out.
Yeah, that can be, I mean, it's at times it can be great to have something visual to measure.
Hmm.
I know on my calendar, I did everything that was family related one color and everything that was work related another color. So I
Hmm.
could actually see appropriated my day, how much was. And then I started adding another category that was just like me. Like, that
Yeah.
was just like personal activities, rest. And it was like, oh, how does that even fit in there? And,
Right.
and to make
Right.
sure that I put that on my calendar. So I'm just going to kind of summarize. I took a few little bullet points, and they're probably in no specific order of different things that we talked about. But it sounds to me like ways that we can really explore rest with compassion are to have shorter term goals, and
Mm.
be the longer term ones are being committed to a feeling.
Mm.
What do I
Yeah.
want to feel? So here's what I need to do today to do that. Bookending our days. So no matter what happens throughout the day, we have something that is restful, relaxing, or it's like a ritual, morning ritual and nighttime ritual,
Right.
that's allowing us. It's a consistency, but it's kind of like blessing us back because we get to have that. So nobody's holding us accountable to it, but it's just kind of like, okay, here's how we're gonna bookend things. And the other things were like setting times, like literally deciding. It sounds kind of like a dichotomy of like be in the flow but set times, but like
Right.
set times when people can't decide for you how you're using your time.
Right.
And then when you do decide this is my chunk for work or my block for work, how can I stay in the flow of whatever needs to show up that's in alignment with that feeling that I decided that I was going to focus on for that day?
Right.
And this thing about stop explaining and justifying things, because the justification seems to be like creating excuses that nobody's really interested in. They're interested in the real story. And if they're really interested in the story, they'll ask. We don't even have to explain it.
Right. Yeah. I yeah, I forgot about the scheduling. That is something that and I definitely really want to do that. And I think for me, even if I don't honor the time, the awareness that it's there, I
Mm-hmm.
think will shift something in me.
Yeah,
That
it
will be
does.
like it will be like, huh, okay, I've scheduled this time to rest, but I feel like I can't rest. What's that all about? Like,
Yeah. You think about, like, I think it's Finland who decided to go to the 4 day work week and the 4 hour or 6 hour work day. That
Mhm.
if you just go and you're super, just like that time is for work, and then all the rest is for flow and for rest or whatever you need for the rest of your life. They showed a huge spike in productivity, and I think they did it on a national level, so that people could really value their rest and be hyper focused when they needed to be hyper focused on one thing. And then COVID has created this overlap for us that so many things are happening. But I think that still, even within the frameworks, we can create blocks of time of how we want to use things. I mean, if you've got little kids, we're going to have playtime from 10 until 3, and then after that is nap time from 3 to 5. I don't know, making stuff. It's been a minute since my kids are that small. But creating pockets. I remember when my kids would go to sleep, I would always be like, and now I can fold the laundry and wash the dishes and do all this other stuff. And it was like, actually, what I really need is to lay down with the kids right now.
Right.
And how do we find time for that and still get to the things that need to keep the house running?
Right.
So lots of different ideas, right?
Yeah, no, it's been great. There's the level of compassion in our rests, because there's a lot of things that are I don't want to say demanding our time, but it is just calling us, and that the more that we can rest within that and kind of take those moments, we can fully show up to that. So thank you. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, yet another one. I appreciate you so much, and I'm glad that we can throw some ideas around and see what comes from it. So look forward to talking with you again next week.
Blessing, my friend.
Blessings. Thank you.